Minneapolis, St. Paul, The Fan.
Hey, Chris, what's going on, bud?
Hey, how you doing, PA?
Pretty good. Thanks for the time, man. Courtesy of Prize Picks, Daily Fantasy Made Easy, and Second Harvest Heartland and twoharvest.org. Did you, dumb question here, and I apologize, I don't know. I was just in Colorado for 3.5 days with my daughter. Did you do a post-All-Star Game presser?
Yeah, it was a quick one, like a media mix zone type thing. Got you in and out.
All right. Well, whether it's there or somewhere that I've missed, pardon me if you said this, but every time you looked at the scoreboard in the second half, you had the countenance of a man hoping the timer was broken and it went to running time. Is that a fair assessment, Chris?
No, not at all. I mean, I enjoyed it. The game was what it was. I was just kind of hoping we might be able to tighten it up there in the fourth, but we're never able to kind of make enough shots, and that's what that game came down to. Whoever was going to throw in the most threes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an honor. I mean, we've talked about it a million times. You have a wonderful team.
Yeah.
Coaching the game was an honor for you and your staff. The game was awful, and that's the only way to put it. And so now it's 7 in a row at home. And having 7 in a row at home, man, that's pretty darn nice, isn't it?
It is nice. Now we have to make sure we take advantage of it. I think it's the most that we've ever had at home since I've been here. I've always seen around the league some of these other long homestands, super long homestands that have taken place. I think maybe Golden State had 9 at home one time, maybe earlier in the season. But yeah, it's going to be a sprint now. We have 17, I believe, of our last 27 are at home, which makes sense. We feel like we've been on the road a ton, but now we got to come out of this break with the opportunity that's in front of us. We got to make sure we make the most of it.
Giannis tomorrow night to begin it, 9:00 tip from Target Center. What's with the Bucks? What's different about them with Lillard?
Well, I mean, just another late game score. I mean, for sure, obviously. The shooting and the point of attack with pick and roll with him and Giannis is quite unique now. But it's just the ability to close games at a high level. I mean, if you ever watched any of those games in Portland for years and years, you just had a habit of like kind of walking you down in the fourth quarter, and one of the best closers in the league.
Well, with no doubt with Dame, but in any way, do you sense they've missed Holiday's defensive tenacity?
I think for sure they've missed Drew Holiday in a lot of different ways. That was inevitable. Anytime you make a trade and you bring one of these guys in, you got to give something up for them. I think they would have loved to have kept Drew, but it just wasn't going to work. But for sure, point of attack defense has been. Something that Drew has been elite at his entire career. And then you have him guarding the ball, and then you have Giannis roaming and Brook Lopez at the rim. It really adds up to one of the best defenses in the league, and that's what they were over the time that Drew was there. So.
In what ways, Chris, does Brook Lopez is fascinating. That's what I'm getting. He's just fascinating. I mean, he's a big guy who can hit threes. He always is lumbered. He kind of looks like he's lumbering when he moves, but he's been around so long, he still blocks some shots. But of late, maybe you see this on film, he's like beating guys off the dribble and getting to the rim. I've just always been a fan from afar of Brook Lopez.
Yeah, he's done a great job of kind of just continuing to adjust and adapt his game to the modern style. He came in, he's one of the most effective post-up players. Drew fouls at a really high level in the low block during his time in Brooklyn. Then started to kind of move to the perimeter a little bit when he was in L.A. And then, as a compliment and a perfect running mate to Giannis, really helped spread the floor there. But he still has the ability to score in a lot of different ways. He can shoot in the mid-range, he can score in the low post still, and, of course, still make the three. And if he's making threes at a high level, they're very hard to beat.
Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, weekly 9 to noon, thanks to Prize Picks and Second Harvest Heartland and 2harvest.org. Give a little if you have it in you or have the opportunity, 2harvest.org. Anthony Edwards. Now what has led to Edwards' assists being higher than normal the last couple of weeks, including that career best 12 at San Antonio?
I think it's a lot to do with first of all, reducing his turnovers. I think a lot of his assist opportunities ended up being turnovers. He maybe penetrate one dribble too far, didn't see the play early enough. Now he's really kind of using the defense to his advantage, creating opportunities for his teammates. Teammates are knocking down shots. All that kind of goes into assist numbers. But I just really think it's kind of like reading the defense, avoiding the crowd, not trying to force things when they're not there, taking the game as it comes, still staying patient and ready, and being able to still put up good numbers in the scoring column. Well, we've really benefited from his assists.
And not only the assists, but I mean, when his free throw attempts are consistently up, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that you like that, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. That's been a big point of emphasis for him coming into the season was increase his foul drawing. And there's a bit of an art to it as well. Change of tempo is important. Understanding body contact and how to kind of influence it is important. And, he's done a good job of kind of going into the paint with a plan. And that also kind of alludes to what we were just talking about with his assists. It's not just his assists up, but his foul drawing is up because he's going in there with a little bit more of a plan, a little bit more of an idea of what the defense is looking like and where his outlets are going to be. And then if they're not there, being able to kind of change pace and finish at the rim.
And that's maturity. I mean, that's just maturity of getting reps and growing as a professional and as a person and sharing. And that's just amazing. That's just beautiful the way you laid that out. But because speaking of maturity, Chris, did you see it into the break? Did you see it as a sign of collective maturity that they didn't get break happy at Portland and instead handled them twice?
I did. Especially game 2 in Portland had all the makings of a trap game.
Right.
Right before the break, we were playing the last game in the NBA before the break. We couldn't have been further away from, where most people wanted to be, whether it be Cabo or Miami.
Indianapolis.
And, yeah, exactly. And either way, we were, we had to play that game. We had just played them 2 days before. A young team that gives you all the fight in the world, but, those back-to-backs are hard to play anyway because one team kind of makes adjustments, the other team gets a little complacent. And we focused on a big start, and that was what we talked about for the 2 days in between games. And we got off to that big start, and they tightened the game up, and then we found another gear, and we were able to put them away. So very, very proud and pleased with those guys in their effort and their approach.
I've never been to Portland, and you were just there for basically 3.5 days. What's Portland like when you're not working?
It's actually a really nice city. I mean, it's got a lot of nice little restaurants. Weather's not the best, as we know, but we were able to kind of sneak out to the outskirts of town for a little winery tour one afternoon. So we had a nice time there. You
step on any grapes? And if so, did you clean your feet before you did so?
I didn't step on any, but I surely did drink some.
Yes, sir. That's my man. Hey, I read this the other day in a quote. You might have said it to Dane Moore, who I've had on the radio show lately, and I really like the work he puts in. When you stress the message, you guys are, quote, really, really good when Cat's in a defensive groove. How well is the message received by Carl Anthony?
Very well.
Good.
I think he recognizes his importance. There's no denying the fact that some of our struggles through the month of January had to do with our kind of defensive intensity dropping off across the team, not just with Cat, but, his defense through November and December had been outstanding. And then it kind of dipped a little bit, as we all did. but we found some matchup issues and found some things that we just weren't able to kind of handle. And it's one of the reasons we were giving back these leads we were able to build. And, he's really kind of turned it around since that several weeks when we challenged him. And, he's really responded and has been playing some of his best defense I've ever seen him play right now.
That's fantastic because you not only will defense be required against these Bucks and pretty much everybody else the rest of the season, but it's a late game tomorrow night. Fans are going to be all energized and loud and stuff like that. But here comes Patrick Beverley now with he's with the Bucks, right? Didn't he used to be with the Sixers this year? He's now with the Bucks.
Yeah, with added bonus, we get to face him for a third time this year. He's going to come in here doing all the things that PB does. He's going to infuse a lot of energy into that team, a lot of passion, play hard, make some plays out of nothing.
Yeah.
And it's always good to see PB.
And yeah, I know you're a fan of Patrick's, but is he the type of player that pushes the envelope to get under the skin of the opposition and pushes it just far enough so that he can throw his arms out and say, "What do you mean? What are you talking about? I didn't mean that." You know what I mean?
That's exactly who he is. I mean, what I love about PB, and I know we talked about this when he was here, but he has been playing this way since he got into the league. He's never lost that chip. He's never lost that edge. He goes out on the floor every night with something to prove to himself, to the opponent, to the fans, to the teammates. Everybody, gets a little bit of PB. So, that's made him who he was, and that's given him a long career in the NBA, and he's been on a lot of winning teams, and that's not a coincidence either.
And a long career in the NBA, Chris, like second round in 08 or 09, something like that. Not only a long career, but as a second rounder. And I mean, it's age old when you look at the second rounds of NBA drafts, man. I mean, it's generally crickets, with about 3/4 of them having careers longer than 3, 4, 5 years. Not for Pat, for sure, but why is that the case where it gets so hard to hit on not stars but even very good players in the second round?
Well, I mean, if you look at Pat as an example, I mean, he didn't come, he had to go to Europe. He had to go and figure out, who he was. He took a little bit of a harder path. I mean, kind of, failed out of the NBA, if you will, early. Because either he wasn't ready or he wasn't ready to be who he needed to be in the league. I think that's a lot of it, too. Guys might need to adjust who they are or how they play or what their role is. They come into the league thinking they're going to be one thing, maybe having always been some version of that. And then they have to kind of reinvent themselves. And it takes a little while, mature, grow up physically, mentally. So Pat goes to Europe, plays in some pretty kind of tough environments over there, which suits him well.
Right.
When we were in Houston, we brought him in mid-season from Europe, and then kind of was able to relaunch himself in the league. And once he got that second opportunity, which I think guys value a lot more, once they get that second opportunity, then he wasn't going to let it go.
Hey, with just a couple here to close. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the time. Wolves and Bucks tomorrow night, 9 in Minneapolis. Looking forward to that one. Anthony Edwards. Do you have it like Anthony Edwards isolation plays you don't use because you're waiting for big spots? Does it work like that in the NBA where you store plays for just the right moment?
We do. Absolutely, we do. We have a bunch of plays. Our playbook is pretty deep. A lot of our plays are kind of variations or wrinkles of our main stuff. And, we definitely have some Anthony stuff we've not gotten to yet, which we will, probably tinker around with coming down the stretch here. But, one thing, Anthony doesn't need plays to go into isolation mode, so we try to temper those.
Yeah.
But if we do find the right opportunity to take advantage of them, or depending on what the defense is doing, sometimes if the defense is committing to them all the time, and we want to get them going in space, sure, we'll go to that package of stuff. So it's fun when you have a guy like him of all the things that you can possibly do.
Yeah.
Both he and Cat.
Yeah, I mean, I should have said pick and roll plays that maybe you drew up on a cocktail napkin with the 13 hours of downtime you got before you had a chance to get back here. But that play, that last question, Chris, and your response also plays into when we were talking about Anthony passing. Because, I mean, if it's a shot clock running down, 30 seconds to go in the game, tightly contested, huge game, Anthony's on an isolation situation, well, you know he's going to get a double or a triple. So the passing part of it and in essence throwing somebody open and not waiting too long to have that down with him, I mean, that's a major asset in the postseason, right?
For sure. And, one thing he's had to learn is actually when to go, just to leave enough time on the clock for his teammates to be able to move the ball again and drive a gap again. So we're not stuck always on the end of the clock, which, has been a bit of a habit at times. But, so all that nuance is stuff that he just keeps learning and understanding a little bit more each time that he goes out there and faces these different looks.
If it's a horse race, we're approaching the top of the stretch, about to turn for home, and they're chasing the Timberwolves, leading it by a length and a half. Top of the stretch, how do you feel about your bench approaching this stage of the equation and the Monte Morris inclusion? I think he played 18 in his first for you. It's been here three games now. Just how's that working in?
Love it. I love our bench. We got great flexibility. Nas is playing at a high level, scoring consistently. I think Monte is going to give us exactly what we need. That kind of versatile combo 1-2 that can played playoff games. Was the starting point guard for the Nuggets when they won a playoff series a couple years back. I liked what I saw from him. We just have to get him kind of up to speed, and I know he's been working hard over the break. He actually didn't go away for the All-Star break. He stayed in town to make sure he got the work in, to get his fitness level back to where it needed to be as we start, this stretch run.
And finally, I read about the Mike Conley 2-year extension with Mike. Why is he especially important to not only the equation but this equation?
Well, I think a couple things. I mean, let's just give him credit where credit is due. He's still an incredibly talented and impactful basketball player that excels in clutch minutes and has been around and helped drive a ton of winning. 60-win team, first place standings, in Utah and in Memphis and now here. That's not a coincidence. Okay. Secondly, his maturity, his leadership, his professionalism is the perfect role model next to our young core. In particular, his relationship with Anthony, if you watch, they're always communicating on the floor. It's no secret that Anthony's maturity that we've just talked about, with whether it be foul drawing or assists or playing with a little bit more composure, is directly resulting to the fact that he and Mike have such a great relationship on and off the floor. And they're very different, but Anthony respects the heck out of him and listens to him and responds to him in the moment, which is a great help to me, for sure. And then, we've talked about this from the time Mike first got here. He has an existing and incredible chemistry with Rudy, and that gets better and better. And he's one of the few people who can actually guide Rudy defensively too. And so it just continues to pay dividends in a million different ways. We're thankful to have him, and we're excited to keep him here in town for a few more years.
Chris, you're fantastic. I'll see you at the game tomorrow night and tear up those Eastern Conference teams over the weekend, okay?
All right. Thanks, PA. Take care.
See you, brother. Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, courtesy of Prize Picks, Daily Fantasy Made Easy, and Second Harvest Heartland, and twoharvest.org. The final two segments into the truncated penultimate, we will welcome Al Nolen into the equation. His Golden Gophers go Sky Yuma against the Buckeyes this evening. And that plus more will be discussed around the
KFAN, The Fan.
right, so at Nolen's Views, NOLENSVIEWS. At Nolen's Views. For Al Nolen, the analyst for the Golden Gophers radio network, it's vast and ever expanding. He fired a bullet against Rutgers. I sent him a text during the game from afar. So now we have the foundation Twitter spot for Al Nolen. Good morning. How you been?
Good morning. I've been great. How about yourself?
Cool, thank you. The at Nolen's Views. Everybody, please follow it.
Please.
Who are devotees to 9 to noon. You love Golden Gophers athletics or Golden Gophers basketball. You maybe received a game-worn Al Nolen jersey from days gone by when he was shutting down, as he likes to remind us, Jordan Taylor for the Wisconsin Badgers. I finally got you to laugh.
That's funny.
Seriously.
That's funny.
Well, you came in here edgy. Holy cow.
No, I'm relaxed.
Like this is Mateen Cleaves radio, and I'm on the other side of Al Nolen, and you're trying to keep me out of the key.
You know what it is? We're playing Ohio State tonight, and they've always been enemies. Remember when I think it was Corky Taylor, shout out to him. Yeah. I think he hit one of Ohio State's players in the nuts back in the day.
Oh, geez.
And they chased him around the ball. Yeah.
So he was Dre before Dre.
They was Dre before Dre. It's always been bad blood between us and the Buckeyes.
Okay, so it's game day.
Game day.
No doubt. Listen to Al and Mike on KFAN this evening. But, so now I understand, thus the edge. It's a game day, and you're going to be working this evening, calling the game, getting all your intel ready. But then you hit me this morning with this podcast situation that's emerging, which is great.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. 9 to noon's here to help for sure. It is at Nolen's Views, NOLENSVIEWS via Twitter. Opinions are his own. Follow it for myriad reasons I laid out too. But how about the third? Is Al has a venture-related idea, and we like to support the metaphorical little guy right now before Al blows up. And that's like the most popular podcast this side of Pat McAfee. And good morning.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Just please don't laugh me out the room. But yeah, we getting it started. You know what I mean? So Gopher fans, follow it. You know, I decided that I might want to do more interacting on Twitter. I see a lot of people chatting on Twitter. A lot of
you're going to argue on Twitter with somebody?
I don't want to argue. I just want to shed some light more from a perspective of a former athlete and now in media, and kind of try to help give a different perspective. That's all. I don't want to really argue with nobody at all. I'm not into that.
So when I texted you, I was visiting my daughter in Colorado. She goes to school out there, and I was listening to the Rutgers game on the free iHeartRadio app, and it was so fun listening to you and Mike. I caught the perfect part, man. I mean, it was a relatively close game.
Yep.
And then Pharrell starts going crazy.
Yes.
And they're drawing away. I'm like, cool. Well, then all of a sudden it started to get weird. Yeah. And like Rutgers kept going to the line and they slowed the game down and everything. I'm like, Rutgers, I mean, hey. But then they drew away again, and I don't know if it was a big crowd in the building. It certainly was a loud crowd.
It was a nice crowd.
That was fun, wasn't it?
It was a nice crowd. It was fun, and yeah. So the Gophers, Gophers are good enough. They can run guys out of the building, and once they get to hitting those fast break transition threes, and Pharrell was great. He had a career night, and it's really nice to see him getting his feel back. I know he's been battling injuries and stuff with his back, so it's really nice to get his feel back, and nice to see the Gophers trending in the right direction toward the end of the year.
All right, at Nolen's Views on Twitter. So when it's a podcasting spot, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a podcast, but really I wanted to create the profile as well to speak with people on Twitter and be a little more interactive.
Okay. When are we doing our first? Not us, but when you're doing your first podcast,
you and I are going to get on there. We're going to get on there.
Okay.
It's soon.
Is it a video podcast or audio only or what?
See, I can't give away all the sauce right now because one of the things I'm learning about being in media, you can't give away all the sauce. You're just going to find out when it pops up.
All right. Well, what if? Do you have any sponsors?
I don't have any sponsors.
All right. Well, what if we go down to the first floor to Continental Diamond? I talked to the owner, Uncle Jimmy, and he's your first sponsor. Then you're going to give up the sauce?
I'll give the sauce up right away. Yeah.
James. All right, we're going to pause then get into the Golden Gophers and Ohio State, talk about the team. But follow Al via Twitter to learn more, not only for following him because it's cool and it aids him and he's part of the 9 to noon Love Covenant, but he's starting a podcast. He's looking to interact with basketball fans and Gopher fans via social media. So from a Twitter standpoint, it is at Nolen's Views, Nolen's with an E, at Nolen's Views. And expect some podcasting and stuff like that to come up shortly. Gophers in Ohio State this evening on that and more. More with the analyst.
KFAN, The Fan.
do you happen to remember when you mentioned Ohio State? When Ohio State got really good with Michael Redd and Scooney Penn, then they had Greg Oden. It's like, I mean, I think it was, you played what?
07. So I was the year after Greg Oden and Mike Conley went to the NBA.
So right before then, the Buckeyes got real good, but they kept running into that Gators team with Joakim Noah, Torian Green, and those. I mean,
Al Horford. Yeah.
Al Horford was on that team too. Yeah. So the Buckeyes, man, it's college basketball, and college sports can be so ever changing. Maybe except at the top, like UConn. UConn fell off for a little bit, but is back up there. Football. If you were to get 4 teams in college football, and you got to hold on to them for the next 20 years, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and somebody else, you're probably going to do pretty well over the course of 2 decades. But the resurgence of the Buckeyes and or the Golden Gophers, that certainly here it seems to be taking place. They should win tonight, right?
Yeah, they should win tonight. They're a totally different team than, when they played in Columbus the first time. I believe it was their first road game. And so they're meshing, they're confident, they're heading in the right direction. Payne just had a great game, so I look forward to him having another good one. Elijah Hawkins is, finding his niche and getting back in his spot and building that confidence as he, when he goes, the team goes. That's how it goes. That's point guard goes, your team is doing well. So they should get a victory tonight. They should take it personal. You got the guy that transferred from Minnesota, went to Ohio State, and now they're, they have a better record in Ohio State. He was, throwing up some 3-point signs in their face the last game. So I hope they remember that. I did see Marcus Fuller and talk to Mike Mitchell about it. So I hope they remember that and they come out with an edge and really go at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. With Pharrell Payne, what goes into him having another great game? It was his best game of the season the other day against Rutgers, and there has been that ascension, that ramp up, it feels like, over his season. So any back issues and all of that aside, just him being on the court, being that good again, what does that take against the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I think it takes him coming out with focus and energy, but also early on not getting into foul trouble, being a little patient in the first 4 minutes. As an athlete or when I play ball, as a defender and a guy that, love to have active hands, the first 4 minutes of the game, I would just feel the game out. I didn't want to necessarily get a foul right away. I wanted to use my fouls later on in the game. And so with Payne, sometimes he's been caught up in some foul trouble, which has deterred him from getting him out of a rhythm and whatnot. So last game, he didn't get any foul trouble. He played great. And so I'm looking forward to him doing the same thing when it comes to those pick and rolls and then, just going straight up to block the shot. So he just has to make sure he stays out of foul trouble. And if he's feeling healthy, then he's going to be a beast down there for the Buckeyes to deal with.
One thing that I was talking to Grim about a bit yesterday is kind of the idea of when something when something is working in the context of a game, like Pharrell against Rutgers. You can find other individual examples, of course. How tough is it? Like when you were playing, the kind of, getting into the post, that's working and fighting as hard as you can to never go away from that, because you got guys that they want to get their buckets too. They want to hit some threes. You want to mix it up. There's transition. You go through lulls in a game. How tough is it to always stick with something and keep pushing that button when something is really working well while you're still trying to run that game from the point?
Well, yeah, it can be tough, and that's all on Elijah Hawkins. He's really going to be the one out there. He's the extension of Coach Ben Johnson, so, he gets to kind of decide the feel of the game. If he's feeling like, hey, Payne has really got it going, then he's going to rally the guys and say, hey, we're going to do whatever we can to find Payne. If the guys, if Cam Christie has it going, he's going to be, do things to find Cam Christie in transition and try to create for him. So it's really up to the point guard to kind of fill out the game and see what's going on. But like you said, if something is working, you want to continue to go to it and then force the defense to adjust.
With these Buckeyes. So Rutgers is seemingly on a roll, right? Like the talk of the conference for a little bit. They win 4 or 5 in a row before the Gophers beat them. And then now you have the Buckeyes. They're 5-10 in the conference. Like how do you catch yourself maybe slowing to judge really just how muddy this thing is, where, any team any night, I suppose, but in the same sense, finding good and bad trends within the conference to really judge what we're up against?
Yeah, that's extremely difficult. Honestly, it's been hard for me as well. I've never seen the Big Ten kind of with this type of parity where everybody can beat everybody. I know Purdue is kind of standing on their own right now, and I was just talking to Paul about Penn State upsetting Illinois the other night. So on any given night, anybody can lose or can win. And you just, you got to kind of, I guess, just look at the seedings. And I know the Gophers, I believe, are 7th or 8th right now with the 7-7 record in the Big Ten. However, they've beaten 3 or 4 of the top 4 teams. along with Michigan State. So even with Michigan State, people are saying like they're a tournament team, and they've been getting they haven't had the great of a year that Tom Izzo is used to, and I'm kind of lost, with the net rankings and whatnot. So I'm with you. I'm still figuring it out as well with this new college basketball landscape.
Well, I'm lost with Illinois at 12, and quite honestly, I mean, I haven't watched Illinois basketball since Marcus Liberty played there, but I look back. I look back at like who they played and when. All right, they beat Kansas. They beat the Jayhawks. Now that was like the second game of the season,
right? But
they're very in and out of late. But they're like ranked 12th. I mean, I can't figure that out. And B, with the Illini on the horizon after tonight, then I think you got Nebraska. Then you got the Illini. Like what's good about them?
About what, the Illini?
Yeah.
They got a good guard named Terrence Shannon, and he had missed a little bit of the season due to some personal issues off the court, but now he's back. So that's one of the reasons I believe they're kind of getting back together and figuring it out with him playing again. But they have great guard play. They have great guard play, and that's kind of really what makes them stand out, with Terrence Shannon being potentially, a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate or type of player. And they can shoot the ball really well. They're tough. But like I said, anybody can be beat on any given night. And Minnesota has proved that, as they were able to beat Michigan State and beat a couple other teams like Penn State on the road as well. So it's kind of up in the air right now. That's why Gopher fans should be excited, as, we're still in the mix, just a couple wins, and you never know, we could get into that tournament.
The Hoosiers are 14-12. Now, like Indiana, we don't have to go back to, the Kent Benson, just some of the best days that they've had, Keith Smart, so on. But correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think they've been very good for a little while now. Is that accurate? Middling?
They've been middling.
Right.
They were all right last year with Mike Woodson. I mean, they went to the tournament, had two players go to the draft. So they were pretty good last year. Yeah, for sure. They just had players get drafted.
It's like, Purdue's been good in the past. I remember Purdue being good, and Indiana. What I'm getting at here is, the Hoosiers, that's sports immortality, Hoosiers basketball.
Right.
Obviously, Bobby Knight and those teams had a lot to do with that, but Like I wonder if the portal and NIL and stuff like that, how much that has affected a blue blood like Indiana trying to get itself up and become better.
I think it's actually a positive for the blue bloods like Indiana, because Indiana, truth be told, they're just holding on to tradition from winning the titles and Bob Knight. Lately, they haven't necessarily been the cream of the crop, I would say. They're in the mix and they're pretty good. They haven't been necessarily the Indiana Hoosiers that everybody is used to. But I think the NIL and the portal helps them out to recruit and get, kids that they might have missed on, like Kevin Ware, the 7-foot center they got. He's a transfer guy, and I believe he was a 5-star guy, but they were able to get him this year. And I'm sure, due to some NIL and whatnot, they were able to get him over. So Mike Whitson's doing a pretty good job down there. But I think it's going to hurt mostly like the Gophers, who aren't blue bloods and who are trying to figure out the law of the land, and then also trying to figure out the NIL situation, because a lot of these schools were already paying players prior to the NIL becoming prevalent. But now the U has to figure out, okay, how do we go about trying to figure out how to pay our players?
You played in a fair number of Big Ten tournaments over the course of time. The Big Ten tournament is here in Minnesota, and I'm just curious, you experienced it on the road, but what do you think a home court advantage, or having that advantage of the Gophers, you can get through one of the Thursday or Friday games wherever they're slotted and get into a weekend opportunity where it's a big time game, but it's at Target Center and it's not 5, 6, 7,000, maybe it's 10,000 people or more at Target Center rooting on the maroon and gold. What kind of an advantage do you think that would be for Ben Johnson's crew?
Oh, that would be a huge advantage. You know what I mean? And like you said, if they're able to get a couple of wins, you'll get more Gopher faithfuls who haven't necessarily been to the barn, but just are happy about the ambiance of the Big Ten tournament, who will want to go check the Gophers out. And as you spoke to, it would definitely, enhance the crowd and enhance the energy for these Gophers to get these W's and hopefully get a Big Ten title.
What's in closing, what is good with the local high school basketball scene, and like for Ben Johnson and this team moving forward, are they getting any of the good guys to head our way?
Yeah, they got a couple good guys coming. I know Isaac Asuma from Cherry. He's going to be a very good point guard. Jonathan Williams was his coach for D1 Minnesota, I believe. Jonathan Williams used to play at the University of Minnesota. So they're going to get some good players, but I think it's just about the players figuring out what the culture was going to be like. And now the culture is starting to create itself in Coach Johnson's third year. And so people are getting more excited. So now he can really go on about recruiting and have something to show for. And as you can see with the players that he's been able to attract this year, it's definitely turning around with the player such as Cam Christie, so highly touted, highly recruited, to even come to Minnesota and probably pass up on a lot of offers. I know his family was hugging Tom Izzo in Michigan State. Everybody recruited his brother, so I'm sure they were after him. And we got to figure out how to keep guys like him as well in this transfer portal era in NIL.
Here's what I need you to do tonight, Al, because you're going to see Mike Grimm at the barn, obviously. We're going to get to hear
Shout out to Mike.
Absolutely.
Hi, Mike.
But for all the things you might be learning from Mike over the course of your budding broadcast career with the Maroon and Gold and beyond, you need to teach him something, because he was in studio with me the other day, and he was talking about the NIT. So regardless of how this season comes to pass, you need to tell him we're talking about the tournament here, okay? So we can dream weave. There are 6 games left in the conference season. We're hosting the freaking Big Ten tournament. We're not talking about invitationals here. We're talking about the dance. And have you found yourself, looking at the schedule, it's like, gotta have it against the Buckeyes. And Illinois is going to be tough, but you get Penn State back here, right? You play that game over the final 6. Have you kind of thought forward at all? Win a couple of games in the tourney and maybe what it takes to solidify an opportunity to be in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, for sure. It's always about NCAA tournaments. That's the goal you set out in the season.
Grimm likes the NIT, apparently.
Yeah, listen, Grimm's a special type of guy, and I'm learning that the more and more I work with him. And we're developing a better relationship, and he's going to get to know me the more and more we work together as well. And so, and I can understand his point of view of being with the Gophers the previous seasons and kind of having to work through that as well. And so, but he's going to start seeing the light. And you saw he got his podcast with Cram Christie. He wants to start talking to the players and getting interactive now and whatnot. So shout out to Grimm, but he's going to come around sooner than later.
Well, I'm just happy to hear that your relationship with him is getting better, because maybe next show we can figure out where it was to make it better.
Yeah, no.
Come on, man. I'm playing with you.
I love Grimm, man. I love Grimm. I just think
you're like a big rock and I'm a chisel. And I'm just swinging away trying to turn you into little rocks and open up that bit.
I hear you. And I think he's just going to get to learn me. I've kind of sat back and learned him, played the role of just learning and feeding off him and kind of picking my spots. And so now I'm getting a little more confidence. He's also opened up some pockets a little bit more for me to speak, is relying on me to speak as well a little bit more. So, we tag teaming together pretty good. So he's going to get to know me a little bit better, and we're going to make this thing work.
And you can hear that whole metamorphosis of a friendship and a professional relationship this evening on KFAN. You're a very special person. At Nolen's Views to learn more about those podcasts. Follow him via X like 9 to noon does, at Nolen's Views. All right, see you later.
All right, see you later. Thank you.
Al Nolen, analyst for the Golden Gophers Radio Network, former sticky game-changing point guard for Tubby Smith's Golden Gophers. I'm Paul Allen. Here comes Matt, producer, with a wrap on the show. Bye.
And thank you to Casey's for sponsoring the 9 to noon show wraps. Get the Casey's app, get Casey's reward, deals on food and fuel, all of those things. And don't forget about the pizza, by the way. Don't stop pushing the button on that BOGO deal. The large one topping will get you a second large one topping half off. So get to a Casey's for that. It's Thursday night and it's time to dim the lights, having sweet dreams, thinking of Ike's Bites, 3-headed beast at talkers that never die. The angles are exhausted, the well's going dry. So we'll try to kick off the loafers and get ourselves dialed into the Gophers. Lasagna's in the oven, yes, it's family-sized stofers. Distracted by my kids, they call me the chauffeur. Forget that, what about Ant and Cat? They're returning from the break and they're ready for combat. Greek freaks in town tomorrow night with Dame. You'll be leaving cheering Rudy's name. Tomorrow's the feast, it's always a mystery. Maybe Charge will read off his internet history. More likely, you'll get impassioned, half-baked takes. We're the verbal version of stepping on rakes.
Who's got it better than us? No!